Hey, good evening, everybody. It is approximately 9:45 p.m. Central Daylight Time on September the 16th, 2024. And let's take care of the housekeeping. You can reach Once Wayward at area code 414. The number is 982-5604. Again, that's area code 414-982-5604. I also ask that if you're following on Facebook, that you go out to the Once Wayward Brethren Facebook page and do a like and a follow, if that's not too much to ask. Also, we do have a YouTube presence, and you can go out there, and we ask that you like and subscribe the page out there as well, so that we can continue to grow this thing that is happening right now. Just wanted to spend a little time out here today to continue on with the discussion. Kind of decided that I was going to title this series "Defending the Bible," but I'm still not quite sure if would be the most accurate title for it, just because it seems to be taking on a life of its own. I want to spend just a little time out here today to talk about how it is that we got at least the Old Testament, as far as as far as it fits into history. As we all know, for the most of us all know, is that Moses compiled the first 5 books of the Bible called the Torah. In addition, it's also believed that he may very well have been the one who edited and published the story of Job, which was written by Job, and it does in fact predate Abraham. So we give Moses the authorship for at least 5 books, and possibly as many as 6 out of the 39 that are in the Old Testament. There are also a bunch of books that were out there as well that were later deemed to be pseudographical or deuterocanonical, depending on the scholarship that was involved at that particular time. One of those books is the Book of Jubilees, and the Book of Jubilees is actually very fascinating reading. It is a corollary to the Book of Genesis. The biggest difference being, of course, that in the Book of Jubilees, everything is broken down according to weeks, as opposed to individual day, as opposed to generations, as listed in the in the books that were edited and compiled by Moses. If you'll notice in the book of Genesis that it will say that now these were the generations of, and when we start talking about the generations of somebody, that means that that person is in all likelihood the person that kept those records during that time. And it was Moses' job Moses took it upon himself to compile all of those things together and to give us what is called the Torah, the Pentateuch, or just commonly the books of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So just wanted you to have that little piece of information to go along with all of the stuff that we talked about before. It is believed, as far as biblical scholars are concerned, that the 39 books that actually make up the canon were composed by various different writers, depending on which books. It's commonly, for example, it's commonly thought of that the book of Psalms, the vast majority of it was written by David. The book of Proverbs, the vast majority written by Solomon. And of course, it's also believed that the books of the 12 minor prophets were written by the prophets who actually bear their name, whose name is actually stated as the title of the book. So just wanted to bring that out. But what's important is the fact that that those 39 books came together and were available prior to the birth of Christ. As we all know, according to Western history, and I'll call it Western history because of the fact that there's other history that existed prior to the stuff that we in America normally learn in school. But we do have to understand and recognize the fact that Western civilization is actually based and built on the information that I'm planning on sharing right now. What happened is that we all know that first there was the Assyrian Empire, then there was the Persian Empire, then there was the Medo-Persian the Babylonians, and then the Medo-Persians that came along, and then finally it was the Greeks. And Alexander, even though he died at a very young age, managed to conquer all of the known empire at that particular time. And when he died, what ended up happening is that the Greek Empire was actually split into four pieces, and the piece that we're interested in is the Ptolemaic portion of that. Ptolemy is the one that actually settled and took the empire, most of the empire that was based on the Greek Empire that was based around northern Africa. He actually was the one that commissioned the great library in Alexandria, and it was his son Ptolemy II that actually had the folks that actually petitioned the priest and the Jewish aristocracy to have 72 bilingual Jews sent, six from each of the 12 tribes, sent to him in Alexandria, so that they could in fact translate the Aramaic, the Hebrew scriptures or the Aramaic scriptures into Greek. And it was those 72 scholars that gave us what is currently called the Septuagint. The Septuagint is that translation, and they immediately set about to translate the first 5 books of the Bible. That was done approximately around 282 BC to about 250 BC, where what they did in a process that was very similar to what King James instituted when he had the Bible translated into English, where these 72 scholars, they all checked each other's work in order to make sure that the translations were accurate. So having done all of that, what needs to be said about that is that many scholars believe that the Catholic version of the Bible is what comes closest to what the actual language in the Septuagint is. And not only that though, but it is also believed by scholars that the Septuagint is the closest is closely related to and almost identical to what was being translated out of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Excuse me. So when we're talking about what's going on in history, it was those 72 scholars that got together, put together the 39 books, and when they put those 39 books together, they had it at the library in Alexandria, and it does not take a very big stretch of the imagination to understand that the Ethiopians, because of their proximity to Alexandria, had access to that library as well, and were able to copy portions of the portions that they copied into Ge'ez, so that they had copies in their libraries as well. Let us not get this mistaken and say that there were not libraries in Ethiopia, and that African civilization did not precede what is written down and what is taught in our schools today. I just wanted to make that perfectly clear. So the other thing about that is that when comparing the Septuagint, the text of the Septuagint, it has been compared to the Masoretic text. It's been compared to the Codex Sinaiticus. It's been compared to the Codex Alexandrinus, and it's been compared to the Codex Vaticanus. And that the codex that was written for the Vatican is where the Latin Vulgate is the translation that is used, that is the one that the Catholics used for comparison, as far as looking at what was in the Septuagint and then converting it into Latin. So needed to have this information because of the fact that what we're talking about here today is about how to defend, in part defending the Bible. And in order to defend the Bible, you can't defend something that you don't know anything about. And because of the fact that you don't necessarily know the history, I'm just trying to share a little bit of this history with you so that you can get to that place where you're comfortable about looking into the other parts of this thing and how everything else went on. I want to go on and further to say that when sitting here thinking about it, it's very plain and very simple that both Philo and Josephus actually make mention of the process in their histories, make mention of the processes that were involved in order to get to the Septuagint. But I also want to take this thing and go just a little bit further with this. I've heard some scholars. I've watched some classes on TV and what have you, and I've heard some scholars say that that they didn't have the apostles were not learned men, and quite possibly, but they never really take that and try to extrapolate that to Jesus. And I just want to give you this to think about before I close. It's very apparent to me that in the gospel stories, that one of the things that happens is that when Herod finds out about the king, he wants to have all of the 2-year-old babies killed. And in doing that, what ends up happening, according to the biblical record, the angel comes to Joseph and tells him that he needs to take Mary and Jesus and go to Egypt. Now, at this particular time, and all throughout all throughout Western civilization, Egypt did not cease to be a center of learning. It did not cease to be a place where people came and gathered information, studied, and did all of those other things. Egypt was always that way. And when I think about it, and I'm going somewhere with this, when I think about it, we also have to understand that Moses, even though he was a Hebrew, he was educated in Pharaoh's court. And that's why we can attribute the authorship of the first 5 books of the Bible, and again, like I said, possibly Job, to Moses. So having said all of that, the Bible does not indicate how long Jesus, Mary, and Joseph were actually in Egypt. But it is quite possible that Jesus was bilingual. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about that one at all, especially when in light of the fact that what would end up happening is that the scrolls that were used in the synagogues were written in either Hebrew or in Greek, depending on the where people were. So having said that, it's quite possible when Jesus stayed behind at the from having attended the Passover with his parents, when he stayed behind and was there with the scholars and said, "Did you not know that I had to be about my Father's business?" When he was there talking to them, we have to understand the fact that here's the deal, that Jesus, we don't know what happened during that time when Joseph took Mary and Jesus to Egypt, and how long it was that they were down there before they came back. We do know that he had to, according to the scripture and the tradition, that he had to be around 12 years old when he was having this dialogue with the religious leaders, and they were amazed. So it's quite possible that when we're talking about this thing, and we're talking about everything that's going on, that there were quite a few people in Jesus's time that were bilingual. There's too many times that we as Americans want to we denigrate folks because they don't come from our country, but yet we don't appreciate the fact that they speak multiple languages. In my own estimation, I have to say that I believe that people that speak multiple languages, whether it be 2 or 3, have to be highly intelligent. Their brains have to be pretty receptive in order to be able to do that kind of thing. And the thing about it is that Jesus would need to be able to talk to everybody. And he would be able to, and he would be wanting to have a conversation with folks. He purposely went through Samaria. It doesn't say that what language was being spoken. When he dealt with the Syro-Phoenician woman, it doesn't say what language was being spoken. So rather than putting God in a box, I want you to start thinking about the idea that it is very, very possible that when we're talking about the Old Testament and Jesus standing up talking in the synagogues, that it is quite possible that he may have done it either in Aramaic or he may have done it in Greek. We don't know enough about Jesus's childhood to not be able to say that whether or not he was able to speak multiple languages. The other thing that was brought out by some of these scholars also is the fact that, as far as the fact that Christians, Jews, and Muslims all share the Old Testament, it's of some value to know that according to a lot of the scholars, what has happened is that the Pharisees, way back in the first century AD, made a decision that they were not going to follow the Septuagint. They were going to they interpreted the 39 books of the Old Testament and utilized them differently because they did not want to be associated with Christianity. We have to remember that shortly after Jesus' death, that the persecution of Christians began. So I just wanted to leave you with that information tonight. I want to get back out here in the next day or two. Hopefully I'll do better than I did this last time, getting back out here. But that's all I have for today. May God bless and keep you, and we'll talk to you later.